Welcome back, everyone. Oz here, and today I've got some r/entitled for you all. As per usual, I'll be reading the post, giving you my opinions at the end, and I hope you do the same down in the comments below. And without further ado, let's jump right into it. Hey, real quick, by the way, GamerSupps is doing a 21% off for all partner codes, so if you want to get some GamerSupp for cheap, go use code Oz at checkout, because the sale applies to all items site-wide, so definitely take advantage of that. Every purchase made using code Oz supports me directly, and I do mean directly. The sale starts February 21st at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and is going all the way until February 28th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sleep deprived. Then you should have come in before 10. A story from the time I spent working in a kitchen. It was a restaurant right next to a music venue, and we got busy on concert weekends, but during the off-season, it could get quiet with just a few regulars. We had music nights and the bar was usually serving drinks until close, so we would be open all year. During a quite late fall day, after doing cleaning and checking dates, we had some apples that needed to be used for something before they got mealy. I used the opportunity to work on my pie recipe. We usually didn't do pies, so it was a change of pace, and it kept me busy so I wouldn't be forced to scrub some unused corner. Pie was great, and the head chef said it was one of the best he had ever tasted. He even took some home to eat. Kitchen closes and we clean everything and break down our stations, put dates on our stuff, and throw it in the walk-in. I get to the point I could wait out the last 10 minutes at the bar. It's 5 minutes to close and I'm waiting on my ride home. In walk the entitled customers. 2 people for drinks at 10:55 isn't unusual. They're told we're closing soon. They say, "We want food." I stand up. "I'm sorry, the kitchen is closed and the line cooks have gone home. We can't serve food." "I thought this was a restaurant." The guy in the leather jacket sneers. "We have some apple pie I made myself. I can serve that if you want dessert, no charge." I was using my best customer service to get the bartender a good tip. "We want real food," the woman in the fur replies indignantly. "Then you should have come in before 10. Bar is now closed. Get out." My bartender friend says unceremoniously and starts turning off lights. I walk to the kitchen, taking their cue, and turn the lights off. I was in the walk-in when I heard the guy follow me into the now dark kitchen and say, "Seriously?" The bartender says, "No, that's not the door out and I can't have you in the kitchen. Please leave the way you came in." Bartender starts printing out end-of-night credit card reports. To someone unfamiliar with the kitchen, it must have looked like I walked through the door and vanished. The couple stomped out of the bar and I poked my head out of the fridge to turn off the parking lot lights, letting them go to their car in darkness. Later, when the bartender drove me home, they told me that that couple has only been in there a few times, has never tipped and argued the bill with the owner on more than one occasion. She had always wanted to kick them out, but when they refused free dessert to try and get food an hour after the kitchen had closed, and were so rude about it, she finally had her opportunity. The 2 of them never came back while I was working there. The bartender and I ate pie at her house and laughed about it. I have spoken quite a bit about how my first job had me in the opposite position of this, how the owner would make me turn the grills back on to serve customers who showed up after closing and, make them food anyways, despite the fact that my shift would have ended almost 30 minutes ago. But there is kind of a unique connection between the place that I was first working at when I was 16 and this restaurant, is that the kitchen closes earlier than the restaurant actually closes, because at my first restaurant, even though the kitchen was closed, there was still the froyo. You could still get froyo, much like how in this case, there was a bar. Kitchen was closed, but you could still get alcohol. The reason why I bring this up is because sometimes Google might have the wrong listing for their closing and opening times, and it can lead to some confusion because it might say, "Oh, the restaurant closes at 11. So then you go in at 10:30 expecting to get food when, turns out, kitchen closed 30 minutes ago. It's the bar that closes at 11. So I can definitely understand where that kind of confusion can come from, and it's definitely something where, I get it, mistakes can happen. But if you walk into a restaurant and find out the kitchen is already closed and it's Google's fault that you have the wrong times in your head, you shouldn't be, demanding they reopen the kitchen to get you some food. Especially when you're offered free pie as consolidation, but then turn it down even after finding out the kitchen is closed. That's on you at that point. Iraq Sin. Entitled bully gets their just rewards. My wife has an entitled coworker/acquaintance. I use the term acquaintance as she does run in our friend circle, but we try to limit or avoid contact with her. We'll call her Carrie. Anyways, Carrie is known for bullying coworkers at work, saying that she can get people fired, she can't, screaming at people, and, at large, just general bad behavior. Her favorite thing to intimidate people with is to tell them to fuck around and find out. This is important for later. So, Carrie had a fuck buddy. Nothing serious, just a guy she would bang and kick out the door. Carrie is also notorious for collecting engagement rings. She would begin dating a guy, get a ring from them, get married to pay off some bill for her, then kick them to the curb. Again, I bring this up only as context to her character and to reinforce that the fuck buddy guy meant nothing to her, as she didn't date him nor tried getting a ring from him. She uses him, then kicks him to the curb whenever someone with money showed her attention. She would also frequently talk shit about this guy behind his back. So, Carrie was on one of her short-term engagements, so the fuck buddy, let's call him Bill, was currently not someone she was seeing, as the new guy just bought her a $6,000 ring. I'm serious, she collected engagement rings like they were Pokemon, and paid 10 grand to get her roof fixed. So she was happy with this guy and had no interest at all in Bill. Enter Mandy. Mandy is another co-worker of my wife and Carrie. I personally don't know her, but from what I've been told is she just got out of a 15-year marriage where she wasn't allowed to do anything and was very controlled. Carrie and Mandy are friends, well, drinking buddies. Carrie likes to drink a lot, and by like, I mean all the time. But nevertheless, they were on good terms. So randomly, Mandy meets Bill. Mandy doesn't know Bill's history with Carrie, nor knows that he even knows her. They hit it off, like really good. And they're getting along so well that they begin dating, and it blossoms into a great relationship, one that's built on respect and love. Carrie finds out, and she loses her fucking mind. Again, she never dated Bill, never wanted to date Bill. She never had any interest in him besides sex. Hell, she's currently engaged to a guy. But Mandy, Mandy took her man, and she let the world know about it. Carrie started by going to their boss daily and asking him, "Why does this little bitch still work here?" She would also loudly exclaim this on the work floor for all to hear. Also, Carrie spent a whole hour yelling and screaming at her for something Mandy didn't even do. Carrie would also frequently harass them both when they were out and about in town. She would loudly call her a bitch, and just all the nasty things you can say about someone. She would not only loudly say these things in their proximity, but tell anyone that would listen, or not listen, basically anyone around her, how she was wronged by Mandy and Bill, and what she thought about it, and that Mandy is fucking around so she's going to find out. Fast forward 2 months. Mandy and Bill are still together and extremely happy. Carrie is not, and surprisingly, no longer engaged to that guy. Also, not surprisingly, has already been engaged to another guy and married after a week. It was unfortunately the 2-year anniversary of the passing of a mutual friend of all parties involved. Carrie is using this time to take the week off of work to drink. This is a whole other can of worms. Basically, she isn't as close to this person who passed as she claims to be. But anyways, once work is over, everyone else goes to the bar to have a drink to celebrate the departed life. So again, once Carrie, after 2 full days of drinking, sees Mandy, she begins to let into her again with all this shaming stuff. Mandy, finally having enough of it, attempts to talk to Carrie in an attempt to reconcile. Carrie is having none of this, and keeps calling her names and proceeds to tell her that Mandy is fucking around and is going to find out, and ends with calling her a Well, I'm guessing something snapped, and Mandy straight snapped and threw a beer bottle straight at her, hitting her in the face. Imagine the cop in The Big Lebowski throwing the coffee cup, knocking her on her ass. There is a slight pause and someone, I don't know who, pipes up. "It looks like you were the one that fucked around and found out." Carrie, obviously stunned, gets up and leaves. So the next day she showed up to work, with a very obvious black eye. She isn't saying anything to Mandy, but going to everyone else complaining that she was the victim, not understanding that everyone has been watching her bully this poor girl for the last few months. And that's kinda it. Nothing else has happened since then, but if it does, I'll let you know. Sorry this got long-winded. I wonder if Carrie actually had feelings for Bill but could never commit to it because she just had such a lucrative side gig of breaking people's hearts and making them pay for her stuff with engagement schemes. So when she found out that Bill was no longer around, it kind of shattered her a little bit because she thought she was always gonna have Bill's heart or something like that. But anyways, good for Mandy and Bill, and hopefully Carrie just shuts the fuck up and stops being the way she is. Good God. Squished raspberry with a Z. Adults refusing to work service industry when they need money. I'm in my mid-30s. I have two friends similar age who are poor and need work but aren't working. I understand if you have a degree or used to run your own business, it's hard to want to be a server or cook or work, but when you need money, why would you not even consider? It's no one's first choice, but you can find a good gig that works for you if you really need it. One friend lives with their parents, one lives with his son and girlfriend. They both have told me they are available to leave home and work, but are waiting for a good enough job. They're both smart guys who have worked service industry before and don't want to go back because it's depressing. I understand this to an extent, but it's also frustrating trying to relate because it doesn't feel like a choice for me or a lot of people who work these jobs. The scenario that got me was when one friend asked to hang out around dinner time. I had just gotten off work and was picking up food. Friend who lives with his parents meets up with me at Subway where I just ordered. He said he's hungry but doesn't have enough for food and gas to get home. Later that night, he mentioned a show he wanted to see with me in a month, but tickets were about $30. I said I had to think about it because I'm kinda broke. This is why I'm making this post. My friend is living at home with his folks and won't get a job, so things like this happen all the time. It's been this way for over a year. I've offered him multiple gigs at places with friends of ours, and he's holding out for something more. I get it, but couldn't you work even part-time somewhere while waiting for that perfect job? We hang out at my place, but we don't get to do a lot because he's so broke. I'm trying to stay on my own goals and budget too while trying to be there for him. Whenever we hang, he says how bored he is and needs money. I tell him to come work with me or one of our friends, and he says, no, it's too depressing. He's never worked at places I've told him to come try. Even part-time, he's not interested. It does kind of rub me the wrong way, like he's above this kind of work, but desperate for cash, which I don't understand. I actually enjoy my job because I found a good place I wish he'd been open to trying. The other friend I feel more for because they're a parent. Similar situation. He's overqualified to work in restaurants or bars, but has before. I've offered him a job with me or friends at variety of places, but he said he's scared of getting COVID and bringing it home to his girlfriend and child. Valid and understandable. I asked if he was going to look for a work-from-home gig, and he said it's too boring. I asked what he's going to do, and he said he's just gonna keep looking. He said his bills are getting backed up and turned off, and as much as I understand, there's a point where you gotta work whatever you can do to make it. If you're asking for help on Facebook for groceries but above working a restaurant job, I don't get it. I don't have family or anywhere to go if I can't pay my bills. It's game over. I've slept in my car and don't want to live through that again. Being stable is a goal I protect with both hands at all times. I've worked so many temporary jobs I hated to survive. Yes, it sucks. There are jobs that aren't your first pick, but help you get where you need to be next. Like a vital step or connection can happen if you're open to meeting people or going somewhere new. I know it's not everyone's thing, but I don't know. Sometimes you need to be open to things to when friends are offering and going out on a limb to get you a shift where they work or connect you. Like if your power is about to get shut off, you still wouldn't want to come in and help do some dishes? I also live with deep depression and get why the industry gets people in a funk, but it also gets a lot of people out of it with a steady paycheck. Sometimes a good boss and friends too. They're my lifesavers, honestly. I need them. Yes, it is humbling working jobs like these in your 30s, but my job is getting me out of debt. I have friends, we work hard, we get raises. The goal is to get in, make what you need, get out, or become a manager. It's not forever, but it's a lot of people's steady now. A willingness to show up can get you out of a hard spot. I made this post after offering both of them a job with me, where they would work with me and get paid the same. $20 hourly is good to me, starting, right? Because it's a restaurant, they aren't interested. They both have asked to borrow money for stuff this month. I'm not mad, but laughing. Damn. This actually just harkens right back to the best of posts that we had last Saturday where someone was just so opposed to being in any kind of service industry because he was afraid that people would look down on him. And when offered a job, decided that he had bargaining chips to try and negotiate being manager and then moving in with his friend who was offering the job in the first place. Definitely just a goofy set of circumstances. But again, I have more respect for someone who's willing to take the time and to go and work a service industry job when they're down on their luck than sitting around and just not doing anything about it and letting things pile up and putting not just themselves but possibly their own family in a worse and worse situation. Sometimes you just gotta bite the bullet. I don't really talk about this too much, but back in 2023 and 2024, when I was dealing with everything that was happening during that time period, I took up a gig doing freelance editing to help pay for the bills because I knew I wouldn't be able to get main channel content done at a rate that would help me pay for everything, so I had to take up something else in the meantime in order to make sure that I was going to be all right, and I just had to do what was within my means to get things done. Thankfully, though, the Vault channel took off, and I was able to shelf doing freelance editing gigs. Now, I know freelance editing gigs don't compare to the service industry. The service industry is grueling and difficult and can definitely take a strain on one's mental health, but I bring that up because sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do, and if you have a skill set and you can, take up something on the side to help pay for bills and to get you in the right place, sometimes you just need to bite the bullet and do that. You shouldn't be ashamed of having to do what you need to do to meet ends meet. We've all been at low points in our life, and we all get it. And there's no shame in it. Tubis61, When Karma Comes a-Knockin'. I've been reading the stories of entitled people at airports and was reminded of an episode I was on the periphery of about 12 years ago. I was working for a bank in the IT department at the time, and one of our IT suppliers were launching some new hardware they really wanted us to buy. Real quick, I just want to say I am so sorry if I butcher the name of this. I am getting like 46 different pronunciation guides, and I don't know which one is correct. I'm choosing the one that makes the most sense. The supplier offered to take a few of us to their site in Montpellier for a study tour. Basically, they would fly us to Montpellier, put us up in a hotel for a few nights, take us out for meals, and generally schmooze us while they showed off their shiny new computers. The only cloud on the horizon was they were flying us from Gatwick on EasyJet. Note, this is not a criticism of EasyJet, they were awesome on the day. I had the delights of a train journey from Scotland to London, and then the joys of the underground across London and the Gatwick Express to the airport. That's never a good start to a trip. But when we got to the check-in area, there were problems. There were several check-in staff off sick, and there was a hell of a queue. Not far in front of me was our entitled passenger. Oh boy, was he unhappy at the prospect of being in this queue, and was he going to let everyone know about it? Turns out, he was on the same study trip I was on. We had been in a queue for a good couple of hours, and the gate closing time was getting nearer. Stress levels were going up, and this chap started to get louder. Out came the usual stuff. I've got a very important meeting. No, you're going on a vendor-funded jolly. I've paid a lot of money. I don't expect this treatment. No, the vendor footed the bill. I want to see someone in charge. Now! The last one seemed to get the attention of the police. They walked over to Holman, pulled him out of line, and started to give him that lecture. I suggest you calm down, sir. It was at this point one of the EasyJet team tapped me on the arm and asked, Are you from Montpellier? I said I was, and she sent me to the desk to check in. They had realized time was getting close, so went along the queue pulling out the Montpellier customers. We were checking in really quickly, off through security, and away. The last I saw of the EP was when the police took him back to his place in the queue, just as the Montpellier flight closed. We never did see him on the study tour. It was a real pity because the vendor took us to a wine tasting session at a vineyard, out for a meal in a Michelin star restaurant, and to a pop-up nightclub on the beach. Oh, and we did see the vendor's latest shiny new hardware. Pity someone missed out on it. I always forget there's an underwater tunnel between England and France, and honestly, it's just really cool. Like, good on you guys for actually getting something like that done, because that's just pretty fucking cool. I can imagine, though, it's a bit of a pain in the ass to, get through it, but it's still an incredible, feat of engineering. At least in my opinion it is. I don't know. I have big appreciations for that kind of stuff. But for those of you who are in America who, have a big problem with dealing with, security checks and that kind of stuff, and don't want to have to wait in line and, potentially miss out on your flight, which in this case, the guy who had, basically all the impatience in the world decided to cause a scene, got pulled out of queue, his flight got called, and then got put back in queue after his flight was called. That's pretty funny, not gonna lie. But anyways, for my American listeners who, might be flying or dealing with general TSA shenanigans, I cannot recommend enough actually going through the process of getting a TSA pre-check. It literally takes, maybe 5 days for approval. Like, you go in there, and then 5 days later, you get your KTN, and then bada booey, guess what? You gotta skip all the bullshit TSA lines, and during the holidays, it is an absolute godsend. Like, after the holidays, when I was flying out of Boise, the TSA line was outside because of how long it was. It was insane having to navigate that. But me, having my fabulous KTN and TSA pre-check, gotta walk by all those poor souls who may have missed their flight and got through TSA in 5 minutes and was at my gate. I can now show up to the airport 30 minutes before my flight begins boarding and comfortably get there, get a coffee, get a pizza or some shit like that, and still make it to my gate before boarding. I cannot recommend TSA pre-check enough. It'll help you avoid being like EP here, where you're sitting in security anxiously watching as the minutes go by and your plane's about to board. Soft ad 385. But nobody told me. I work in the call center for a travel company. We do a little bit of everything, but my specific department deals with flights. We had several different price points and programs depending on the customer's individual needs, but most folks opt for the cheapest, a BOGO deal. Now, being a BOGO arrangement, these are basic flights, just simple, no frills. Get you where you're going sort of things. If you have particular needs, say you only fly a particular airline, or you must have premium seats, or someone needs to travel with grandma who's on a different reservation, all of that goes through one of our other programs that allows for more customization. All of this is listed on our website, and there's a link to it on the reservation confirmation. And yet, each and every day, I get calls from guests who didn't read the terms and conditions. For the most part, it's fine, it's just part of the job. And then there was Paul. Paul comes onto my line as a blind transfer from another department. This already has me in a sour mood because the typical courtesy at my company is that the other agent comes to me first and provides a reservation number and a quick brief of what's going on. This is for 2 reasons. First, it gives me a minute to anticipate what the call's about and find any relevant information. And second, it prevents the guests from having to repeat themselves, which can already make an irritated caller even worse. Which is exactly where I found myself. Fantastic. Before I've even said a word, I hear Paul grumbling and muttering to himself about how this is bullshit. Still, I'm a consummate professional, and after working my entire adult life in customer-facing roles, I'm pretty unflappable. So I pretend I did not hear him, go through my usual security measures, pull up his booking, and ask how I can help. What follows is almost 6 unbroken minutes of him listing everything wrong with the BOGO deal terms and conditions, that he wouldn't be able to choose his airline, and that there may be a layover on his way, and that nobody told him it would be like that. For the record, the thing that he was afraid of has not happened yet. It is still only a possibility. Since his flights had, at this moment, not been issued, I have no idea what they would be, only what service standards permitted them to be. Because I believe in guests being fully informed of the terms and conditions, I always go through them painstakingly with every caller I speak to. If a guest doesn't take the initiative to read them or to call, well, at a certain point, that's on you. Still, I apologize, and the words have no sooner left my mouth than he snaps. You're not sorry, don't say that! You're not sorry! First of all, don't presume to tell me what I am or am not, as it happens. I genuinely am a generally helpful person and will go out of my way to help a guest get what they need for their flights, even if that means not booking air with us. I would much rather lose a sale than have a guest's needs not met. So, ignoring his outburst, I let him know that he's within the time to be able to switch to one of our other programs that would give him what he needs. It might be slightly more expensive at a per-person rate. Oh, so you're gonna charge me more? This is bullshit! Well, yes, you can have the buy one, get one free flight, or you can have control of what those flights look like. Not both. But nobody told me! Never mind the terms are available for you to peruse at your leisure, but sure. Well, if you don't want to do that, you still have enough time to cancel air with us without penalty, and you can book flights independently that suit your budget and needs. I'd be happy to help you with that. No, you just don't want to help me. Got me there. At this point, you're correct. I do not particularly want to help you any longer. as this conversation has now taken almost 20 minutes of my day and your steadily climbing volume is giving me a migraine. Paul, I'm sorry, but why do you keep saying that? No, you're not. I wish I could say that there was some fantastic malicious compliance or witty comeback, but there really isn't. After something like half an hour of this cyclical shouting, all I could do was reiterate the 3 options on the table. He could go to our customization program and pick what he wants, he can cancel our flights and get his own, or he can roll the dice and see what his flights end up being. And I made sure I thoroughly noted on his booking that I told him so. So I don't usually fuck with travel agencies because I am way too much of a control freak, and also it's totally not that I'm too socially awkward to deal with someone that, is actively trying to help me plan a vacation, and I just don't want to deal with that. I just want to kind of go with the flow and see what happens. So because of this, I don't have too much experience with travel agencies. But I can't imagine choosing something called the BOGO plan and expecting nothing but the cheapest possible plan ever. Like, if I choose something called the BOGO plan or BOGO deal, I'm gonna expect to be the cheapest possible fucking thing that gets me from point A to point B no matter what, and my luggage may or may not come with me. That's kinda what it sounds like I'm signing up for. Granted, BOGO does stand for, I think, like buy one, get one, and which does make sense for like what it is. But there's also the BOGO sort, which is just literally random bullshit go, and that has permanently tainted my view of the word BOGO. So that's why if I hear something called the BOGO deal, I'm going to expect that it is the bullshit deal. Good luck! You'll get there, you may not like how. Hey, welcome to the outro. Don't forget GamerSupps is doing 20% off for all partner codes, so if you use code OZ at checkout, you get 21% off. And yes, it does directly support me. I really do mean that. Again, the sale is going on until February 21st at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, all the way to February 28th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And of course, not to mention, GamerSupps has more than just caffeine products. They have caffeine-free, they actually have ramen noodles, they have mouse pads, posters, t-shirts, their t-shirts are actually really comfortable, and just a lot of really cool stuff. Plus, non-waifu stuff as well if you don't want to be wearing a degenerate shirt around, so there is that as well. They've actually got some really cool non-anime girl designs that I'm actually a really big fan of. So again, if you want to take advantage of the 21% off and get yourself a nice comfy shirt, this is like the perfect time to do it. Use code OZ at checkout because again, it does directly support me.